On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it 33 minutes after the hour now, Thursday morning, January 30. Great to see you this Thursday. Thank you for joining us. We are coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the National Education Association, the good men and women of the NEA under President Dennis Van Rokel, doing a great job in the classrooms of America. And we want to especially, we thank them for their support, and especially salute our teachers in many, many states and all the extra great work that they have done the last few days dealing with kids who have been trapped in their schools or in their school buses in this bad weather. The teachers have really risen to the occasion. And Atlanta alone, 10,000 kids spending the night in the schools last night. And, you know, the teachers were the ones who were taking good care of them. Speaking of our good union brothers and sisters, we're proud to welcome another good union brother to the studio this morning. You may remember a couple of weeks ago we visited with J. David Cox, who is president of AFGE, Federal Government Employees. One of the important parts of that union are those correctional officers. They call themselves the Prisons Bureau Council. Their former president, Phil Glover, joining us in studio this morning. Hi, Phil. Good to see you.
Morning, Bill. Down
from Pennsylvania. You guys weathering the snow and ice up there?
Actually, it's a lot better here than it is there, that's for sure.
Is that right?
Yeah. We have about 14 inches when I left of snow at my house, so this was a break.
Hey, we got by with an inch, I think, a couple of days ago. Let me ask you about the work and the conditions in these federal prisons. You hear a lot of stories about problems with prisons today. So you and your members are the correctional officers in federal prisons alone, right?
Correct.
How many are there?
There's about 114 federal prisons in 37 states.
Whoa, right. So you're coast to coast, right?
Big outfit.
These include the real heavy security, maximum security prisons, right?
Yeah, we have about 18 high security penitentiaries across the country.
Anybody ever escaped from any of them?
Probably not the high security facilities, not since probably Alcatraz way back in the 60s.
Oh, look, it made a great movie.
It did. But no, we've been very fortunate to not have escapes at the high security facilities.
Yeah. I have to give a plug to my friend Richard Tuggle, one of my best friends in Los Angeles, who wrote Escape from Alcatraz.
Is that right?
Yeah.
No kidding.
So I always think of that. But the reason I ask you about the prison is because all this talk about, and the president said the other night, again, we have to shut down Guantanamo, and some Republicans say, well, we can't bring them here because, you know, we don't have any place that can hold them. We have some pretty tough characters in our federal prisons.
We have well over, I think, 300 terrorist type inmates already in our system.
Yeah.
We've held these people for years. Go back to the 93 World Trade Center bombing.
Mm-hmm.
When they were prosecuted in New York, we have those inmates secured. They've been secured since 1993 in a federal prison. So we can handle those inmates. That's not a problem.
Now, you hear about problems, particularly crowding and underfunding with prisons around the country. Is that a problem with the federal prisons as well?
It is. What happened in the early 2000s when the administrations changed from Bill Clinton's administration to the Bush administration, all of a sudden our budget started to shrink. And what happened? We used to be staffed around 96% of funding levels, and now we're around 89% of funding levels. And that's continued over the course of these last couple administrations.
So is it because well, first of all, I guess that means is there overcrowding in terms of too many prisoners in too few facilities?
Absolutely. Our high security prisons, for instance, are 51% overrated capacity. Our medium facilities and lows are around 40 to 45% overrated capacity.
And what kind of problems does that generate or create in a prison?
Well, anytime you take a group of men and put them in a a secure facility, close quarters, it develops into problems. And just like here in a city, you have groups develop that all have competing interests inside the facility for recreation space, for education space, and different programs.
Oh, I could see that could create a lot of tension. It's bad enough, Peter and I are both here in the studio. I mean, just this close with this close proximity.
It is a little tight, isn't it?
Yeah. And imagine 24 hours a day, 24/7.
I can tell you that in a room this size, we may put 6 inmates in it. That's
Get out of here.
At some of the low security prisons, yes.
Wow.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And you can just imagine the problems that would create. Right. And in terms of now, for what I'm getting to, in terms of your side of the equation here, the correctional officers, that creates even more problems for you, right?
Yes. You have to monitor the inmates' conduct, and look, we get hit pretty hard with how we handle federal prisons, and we have a lot of outside groups that criticize what we do. But I can tell you that as a union, we have asked for more funding for building so that we don't have the crowding. We've asked for we've supported a bill S-1410 with Senator Durbin, Senator Leahy, and Senator Lee out of Utah, actually, who have co-sponsored a bill called the Smart Sentencing Act to try to lower crowding. And some of these other initiatives that the Attorney General has put forward to try to limit how they prosecute, those kind of things. We have supported all of that.
Well, as the prison population has grown, has the number of correctional officers grown?
No. As a percentage, no. That's where we've lost over the years. Instead of keeping pace, we've been outmatched, basically.
And what does that mean in terms of your workload, number one, and your safety, number two?
Well, we've seen increases in assault rates. We had an officer murdered last year in Canaan, Pennsylvania. Eric Williams was murdered by an inmate alone in a housing unit. He was working with 130 high-security inmates by himself on an evening shift. And he was...
So one person responsible for 130 inmates?
Yes. And actually, at some facilities, that's worse. That's not beyond the scope. We've had that for many years.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
I mean, you're not talking third graders. I mean, you're talking
right. I was going to get at that.
Grown men, each of whom are there for a reason, and some of them are there because they've been involved in violent crimes.
Yes, the high security facilities in particular, those inmates have been normally they're career offenders. They've been in the system for a long time, or they're coming into the system after committing crimes that are pretty violent, and they end up in those situations. And then, again, the facilities break up into gang activity and different things, and you have to deal with that every day.
I'm fascinated by the when we talk to a lot of people who represent kids and work with children or work with their fellow workers and things like that. But these are, like you said, criminals, and they don't necessarily get a lot of sympathy from people. So it's a really kind of sticky dynamic, I think.
It's difficult, and trying to cut through the noise is difficult.
Right.
Because what happens with us is we're depicted as a bunch of, thugs, guerrillas, basically coming out here beating inmates. I mean, we get this a lot. I'm not, we really are trying to control the situation with the number of inmates that we have, the facilities. We have over 40 facilities that are over 50 years of age. And so we have places that are falling down around us as we try to maintain it. And then Congress gives us a budget of $90 million a year to do maintenance and repair, which is impossible. I mean, you could take that and spend it on 2 or 3 prisons. Let's say Lewisburg, for instance, in the middle of Pennsylvania, which is an old facility.
Yeah.
So we're always under the gun on these kind of things.
And are you armed?
No. We carry no firearms inside the facilities. And we do have some perimeter patrol and some towers. But other than that, inside the facilities, we don't. We have initiated a pepper spray. It would be surprising to you that the mall mall cops have pepper spray and officers inside a federal prison don't. So we are just now starting to get that inside some federal prisons.
Do you have, like, I don't want any state secrets here, but batons? I mean, do you have any?
No. Essentially, we carry a radio, we carry a body alarm, and we carry keys. And our main objective is to communicate with the inmates to make sure we don't have problems. That's our first line is to try to communicate and not have issues. If we have an incident that occurs in a unit, we're supposed to hit our alarms and have as many staff come to respond as you can. And then we deal with the situation.
I imagine that anything like a baton or anything like that would escalate a situation very quickly if it got in the wrong hands.
Well, you say that, but they have broom handles, they have mop handles, they have chairs, they have everything at their disposal to injure you as an officer that they require. The officer, for instance, that was murdered last year, he was stabbed over 100 times with homemade weapons, homemade shanks. And they were fashioned out of different pieces of material from the prison. So for us, we would rather have the risk of having something on us that we can get to than to depend on our folks showing up at the right time to help you, because that's a problem.
Yeah.
Why would you take this job?
Well, that's a good question. That's a darn good question.
Think about that one for a second.
You know what? Maybe I should think about it.
I'm feeling scared just sitting here.
No, I think. Well, I mean,
it's like a Scared Straight episode.
I guess in my own situation, which is all I could speak about, is I came out of the military. I left the 82nd Airborne Division in 1990. I came home. My wife wanted to come home and not travel around the military. And as I looked for work, I had been an MP, and I ended up in law enforcement in the prison system. So it fit what I had done before.
Well, good for you, and thank you. I just don't ask me to take it here. This is fascinating stuff, a whole slice of life that we very seldom get a glimpse into. And we'll continue our conversation and ask you to join in, if you like, at 866-55-PRESS. Tell us about your prison experience. No, you'd be amazed. A lot of families have had dealings with members of their family who happen to be in prison at one time or another, or the things that you have read or heard, or someone you know maybe who works in a prison. Phil Glover here from the AFGE at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show. Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
And here we go with 11 minutes to go before the top of the hour. In the next hour, Kevin Cirilli from Politica will be here as a friend of Bill. We'll be joined by Rodel Molyneux, who's the president, had been the president, about to leave that post, president of American Bridge. We're talking about the federal prisons and from some of the problems with with overcrowding in the prisons, or crowding in the prisons, overpopulation, I guess, and the impact that has on a lot of the correctional officers who find themselves underfunded and overworked, I guess. Phil Glover, former president of the Prisons Bureau Council of the AFGE, here in studio with us. Let's take a quick call here, Phil, if we can, from Billy down in Clover, South Carolina. Hey, Billy. Good morning.
Hello. How you doing?
Oh, we're doing good. Thanks for your call. What's your question?
Yes, I would like to ask Mr. Glover. I know in South Carolina they lock you up for a joint. In South Carolina, if they cut back and stop locking people up for small amounts of marijuana, because they put you in there and take you to prison here if you get caught a couple of times, even with a joint. And I was wondering, would that not cut back on the crowding that's in the prisons and stuff?
Yeah,
I know there's like
good.
13 states that have legalized it for medical use, and then 2 states for leisure use.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if they would cut back. That seemed to me like it would cut down a lot on the overcrowdedness.
Good question, Billy. Hold on. So, Phil, what percentage of these people in these prisons are on for nonviolent crime, drug use?
We have probably a high 40% that's in for drug offenses, and that was all done through the 80s. They took away parole in 1987, which there's really nothing for an inmate to really work for. They get some good time through the years, but they don't have parole.
Yeah.
That's a problem. But yeah, we have over a very high
crazy.
amount.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that's something that Congress definitely ought to work on.
Well, when I first started working in this system, there was about 50,000 inmates in the entire federal system. There's over 217,000 now, and that's 23 years.
Oh, good Lord.
So that tells you kind of...
Yeah.
I think we had 40 institutions when I started, and we're well over 100, I think 114. So it has just exploded.
We're going from 50. I think I've seen this number. I think we have more people in prison in this country than any other per capita, right? Than any other country in the.
I think we do.
On the planet.
And then you have to look at your state systems and your counties and jails. That's where that other number comes from.
Debbie is up in Worthington, Mass. Hey, Debbie. Good morning.
Hi. My question was about whether privatization comes into play. And does that come under another line in the budget so that they could underfund the federal prisons as they are now? And put the money into another line.
Another good question. Privatization.
We have numerous, about 14 federally privatized facilities. Our union has always spoken out against that practice. We think they're unaccountable. We don't believe that they have oversight. Our director can be pulled up to Capitol Hill at any time and ask questions about treatment and those kind of things. Get the CEO of GEO Group or Corrections Corporation of America to come to Capitol Hill and get beat on for a day or two. It doesn't happen. We do have a problem with those. We have a problem with their costs. As we've had to cut funding and positions, obviously their corporations just continue to run. And you don't really know how they're handling their prisons. So that is a problem for us.
No, I can see that too. I mean, you turn these facilities over to their interest is going to be nothing about helping these people out or transition or whatever. It's just going to be pure bottom line.
Right. It's all about the money in the stock market, and that's all they're worried about. And again, we've seen problem after problem at private prisons, and we discourage their use.
You can find out more about the good work in general of the AFGE under President J. David Cox at afge.org, and I'm sure you've got a link there to something about the work of the correctional officers.
Yes,
right?
We have a link to the Safe Prison Project, is what it's called. If you go to the AFG.org site and then Safe Prison Project.
Safe Prison Project at afge.org. Phil, we'll let you go. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And thanks for your good work.
It was a pleasure.
Keep yourself safe, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, I'll be back to tell you what the president's up to today. He's got on the road again.
This is the Bill Press Show.